Welcome into Wrong Side of the Pond. He is DJ Schweitzer. I am Jeremy Lance. No COVID, no out of town, nothing like that. Well, I'm going to be out of town tomorrow. That's basically why we did this. I had just a million things going on.
We're leaning into the technology now is what
yeah. Yeah. And you live a bit farther away than you did before. So the trek is a touch longer.
It is a touch longer. It used to be just a quick jaunt. It felt far before, but when you jumped in the car and it was like 20 minutes beforehand.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at a full-blown half hour again.
Yeah, it's every bit of 30 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry. We didn't plan around the podcast for this move.
Unacceptable. Well, we have a show. Obviously there's a lot going on.
You're welcome. That's what we're trying to say is you're welcome.
You're welcome. We have a show. We obviously want to talk about MLS. Week 1 happened. We're going to kind of play a new game of underreact, overreact, because obviously that's the big thing. Like week 1, like everybody wants to draw way too many conclusions.
I have a lot of
and like a few of those conclusions are like, yeah, that's probably that's probably spot on. And then some are like, well, let's pump the brakes here. It's one match. They don't even have half their team here. You know, it's that kind of stuff.
Hot take territory.
Oh, yeah. Is there any other territory you'd love to be in than hot take territory?
Not if you're on social media.
So we want to hit that. We want to talk a little bit about some of the other things going on in English football with obviously we had our first domestic cup final of the year of the campaign. Manchester United is still terrible. Newcastle are like riding a heater. They're already up in like the 14th place. So there's all of that. But obviously none of that is as big of news is everything that has happened since I guess Thursday, as the world changed and the invasion of Ukraine happened. And obviously what's going on the ground is the more important thing. This is a soccer podcast. We're here to talk about the less important thing, which is just all the fallout and all the collateral moves that have happened because of this that has been going on and really changing the landscape of the football world.
Well, I think it's naive. You know, there's all this posturing about how you're keeping sport and politics separate, and it's always such a naive discussion, right? Like the idea that international sport would not be wrapped up in politics is just stupid. Like politics is life. Like that's all it really boils down to, right? And we're not trying to turn this into a politics show, and we're gonna do our best to steer clear of political takes, I guess, in this vein. But at the same time, like it's impossible to ignore when something like an invasion of a sovereign nation happens and the impact that would have. And
right.
You know, we'll get into this plenty as the show wears on tonight, but to say that the international bodies or the power players in sport should ignore this, especially when they're all so intertwined now, it's a silly thing to even contemplate. So let's not pretend that we should ignore it, and we're not going to ignore it tonight. And we're going to get into what all that means for the teams that we love and care about week in, week out.
So obviously the initial first thing that happened with all this is a bunch of national teams. Poland, I think, kind of led the charge because they had matches. They had World Cup qualifiers coming up against Russia here soon.
Yeah,
and they were basically like, "Yeah, we're not playing any matches they're in. I don't care where the match is played. We're not going to be there. You can forget it. We're not playing these guys."
And if you're familiar. What really complicates all this too, like we're talking about Poland. We're going to talk about the Czech Republic here in a moment, who joined Poland in their protestations and wanting to play against the Russian side in World Cup qualifying. All these sides that are kind of wrapped up in this have massive amounts of geopolitical history with Russia. Like,
Yeah.
it's inseparable from the conversation, which is why anytime everyone's like, leave the politics out of it, like, look, listen, guys, you can't separate the politics from this. Like, we're talking about 50, 60, 100, 200, like thousands of years of political history that's built up in these areas.
Yeah.
So to ignore this, when Poland says they're not playing Russia, it's not just because, well, this conflict's happening. They're also going, well, this conflict's happening, but remember all the other things that happened before this.
Right. So the boycott started early and often with a lot of people that are affected by it and been influenced by it in countries like Poland and Czech. It's like Czechia now, right? Didn't they just change Czech Republic? They're going by Czechia.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've not fully caught up to speed on that one. That's like the North Macedonia thing. I'm still adjusting my brain to what's going on there.
I'm still trying to figure out where that is on the map.
The Czechia national team.
Yeah. So then that caused UEFA to come out and make what they like to do, which is a tepid, worthless statement of like, oh, well, this and that. And I think was it thrown around there at that point that like they might make Russia just not play under their flag, like they just go full IOC style and just the footballers of Russia.
Yeah, the Independent Commission of Russian Football Counselors.
Yeah,
and they would wear a FIFA logo that was colored in Russia colors. I mean, it would barely
just picture of Sepp Blatter.
Yeah, just a picture of Sepp Blatter with a Russian flag over his face, and it really was tepid. Like, I think that's the best way to explain it, and it's exactly how you feel. We talked about this briefly a couple weeks ago with the Russian skating stuff and how it was just so like the violation happened and you're like, all right, well, the rules, how they normally are enforced mean that this person won't be skating. And it felt like the same thing all over again. Like, well, hey, we've been in this position before. If you're old enough to remember, or you've read any history about it, or people have been making plenty of allusions to it. But back during the Yugoslavian conflict, Yugoslavia was kicked out of the Euros. Like, they were kicked out of the Euros. They were kicked out of World Cup qualifying, all of the above. And it was very contentious that they did that. But there was like a heinous internal civil war happening there. And like appropriate measures were taken. And we're now reaching that point where those types of decisions were having to be made again. And they were having to decide, is this enough or too much? And it forced people into some spots where now FIFA's not had to go in recent times.
So that was the Friday response, or the Saturday response, maybe it was.
Right.
Within about 24 hours, UEFA and FIFA finally, like, even the IOC at that point had been like, hey, we got to just cut them all out. And they jumped on board with that finally.
Yeah, but what a passing of the buck from the IOC. Like, the Olympics are done. Okay, now we're kicking all the Russians out.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then the IOC was also basically like, well, but every sports, own their own federation needs to make the call on that.
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Until they reverse course. Which
I guess the one of those moves was the International Judo Federation or whatever, which Putin helps run. They had to make some moves. They had to make some leadership change.
Yeah, isn't Putin like a black belt or some crap in judo?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's big judo guy.
Whatever the propagandist told us. Yeah, but how many? It's funny you bring up the International Judo Federation, like condemning, Russia's naughtiness. How many organizations did we go down the chain before FIFA was like, oh shit, these guys did it? Maybe.
I think it was when Coventry City put out that statement. When they did, it was like, okay, well, it's for real.
Now that Coventry's done it, that's what we have to do.
Yeah,
it's the tipping
Chips
point.
Are down at this point.
We were waiting for them.
So Russia as a footballing federation, they're just out. They're out in the fact that their national teams at all levels cannot compete in essentially anything. It also means that their Champions League and Europa clubs are insta-done. So Spartak Moscow had progressed in Europa, and RP Leipzig are just gonna get a walkover, I guess it is.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. Did you see the tweet of theirs too, where they'd like early and they like did this? It was a great social media, to be fair.
At the time.
To be even more fair, it's probably like a third party they've hired in a Western country that's tweeting on their behalf.
Right. It's some 22-year-old in London.
Yeah.
That probably is doing that for them.
Yeah, that's most likely where they're coming from. And it was like all the teams who haven't qualified waiting to get in, and us, with our feet up already qualified. It's like, you're not. I do, it's weird. I think the move to punt the Russian clubs and national teams out are the right moves. I think it's the appropriate pressure that a sporting organization can apply in these types of situations. Like, what else can FIFA really do short of, cut ties with, the Russian companies, which they're reluctantly doing now.
Right.
And
Gazprom and all those others.
Sure, it's mostly Gazprom, but other ones exist too.
And their subsidiaries.
Yeah, and how far down the chain we have to go for that. But that's the appropriate move. I do feel bad for the Russian players. Like they can't control their nationality. They can't control. Some of them are certainly complicit. It'd be naive to say that some of them weren't supportive or believe it was the right course of action or whatever. Right? Like that's politics and how things play out.
Sure.
I think most of them
just ask the face of the NHL.
Yeah, let's not get down that path at all right now. The NHL has got its own things they're dealing with. But you see these situations unfold and you can kind of go like, okay, I can feel bad for some of these guys. The foreign players that are stuck playing for Russian sides that are in this situation. Your heart breaks for them. Like, they're just trying to make their living doing all this stuff. But it as much of it sucks as for all these players. Like, what else? I think it's the bare minimum that we should expect from an organization like FIFA that has so much sway.
It is the bare minimum, and yet it's also very surprising that they did it because they are generally not only worthless when it comes to this kind of stuff, but extremely complicit in this. I mean, and just the shadiness and all that crap. And I mean, we still have a World Cup coming up at the end of the year in Qatar.
Oh man, I mean, this just unloads so many different things that like the minute, and I think FIFA knew this, right? Like, I don't know if you saw before all the hammer fell, Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, was getting interviewed in some sort of press event type situation. And someone was really, turning the screw on him, really putting in the questions about this particular issue. And Gianni, as it turns out, is totally homies with Vladimir Putin. Like, the two of them,
what a surprise.
They go on Black Sea yacht rides together. Like, there's no doubt that those kind of things are happening. And before the 2018 World Cup, Gianni Infantino was given a peace medal by Putin. And this reporter with massive balls asked this huge question in front of everyone, and he's like, "Are you giving back your peace medal that Putin gave to you?" Unfortunately, he also wrapped it in like 3 other questions. And that's the problem you have with these, Zoom press conferences now, where I get to ask a question. There's really no back and forth anymore, the way they're
right.
kind of used
you
to
just
being.
kind of have to all just unload it at once.
Yeah. And it's changed the way this is all done. And it gave Infantino some latitude to avoid the question. But he ultimately dodged it and was very clearly not giving him back his best friend medal from Putin. Because the dudes are still, they've got like a vacation planned in August, like they've got something, already in the pipeline, and he doesn't want to talk shit about his friend because, they're already making so many backroom deals that it's ridiculous to even make the comparison. So it's just, it's tough. It's frustrating because the reason why FIFA was so slow to act. They're so in bed with all this. Like,
right.
Think how many competitions have been in Russia and dubious places of late. Like the Olympics for the last 6 cycles have mostly been in China and Russia and in their sphere of influence. It keeps coming back into these same situations, and it's all funneling to the same locations. And you'd love
because that was the first move actually that UEFA had to make, was to move the Champions League final this spring from St. Petersburg to Paris.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we literally are in the thick of it. They were like, should we move this thing now, because people might be able to put together 1 and 2 eventually.
Yeah. They're going to start connecting the dots, guys.
Yeah.
I think they're onto us.
I mean, it's so, as we were talking earlier, it's so complex, and the regional stuff is so deep. And to put it down to just soccer is, it feels naive.
So the other bit of news with all of this is a little matter involving a certain club called Chelsea Football Club. Their owner.
Have you heard of them?
I'm somewhat familiar with the outfit. Their owner, Roman Abramovich, is a Russian oligarch. And if you haven't been watching the news lately, those guys are kind of the block is hot. The block is hot for those guys.
Used to be one of the best games in town.
Yeah. But it's not good. It's not a good time to be a Russian oligarch. People are kind of after you. There is sanctions heading your way if they aren't already at your doorstep. There are yachts being seized all around the globe right now.
So many
yachts. Just so many yachts being towed right now.
Yada 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 yada. Isn't that how it goes?
I don't know. I mean, so you talk about gifts. Roman Abramovich did at one point in time give the gift of a $20 million yacht to Vladimir Putin. And that is probably the most mild way to lay out their relationship.
How do you not scrape into politics in a show like tonight's? I love the idea of someone being like, listen, sport and politics are separate. Right now, you can't even say they're separate at all, because they're not.
We're just gonna break down box scores, guys. We're not touching that third rail.
I feel totally obligated, as we talk about third rails, to be like, hey, I did vet with Jeremy. I'm not here today to be like, I want to rub salt in the wound, because I feel like that's the wrong reaction.
I mean, it is a reaction that a lot of people are having.
Yeah, and screw those people, frankly. But I think it's complex, right? Much like all of this stuff is. And
right.
I think you as a Chelsea fan are feeling this in a way, obviously, more than most are. I think Everton fans Those poor Everton fans, they not only do they never quite get over the hump, but now they're getting sucked into this fray without having won anything.
And also, their guy wasn't even big time enough to avoid this first round of sanctions. He got swept up right away. He wasn't even powerful enough to dodge sanctions.
Baby sanctions. He got the baby sanctions.
He got slapped first round out the gate.
Someone didn't even need to go to parliamentary privilege to spill his.
Yeah, none of it. No grease in the wheels there of Boris and company.
That's how you really know what's up.
But did you see that one clip where like someone goes to in Parliament goes to bring up Roman Abramovich, and like literally Boris Johnson like basically like just scurries out of the room.
It's so obvious. It's amazing. It really is. But let's get back around to this, because I think it's important, and I feel like this is such a, it almost feels incredible, because on one hand, the idea of Roman getting booted out for being like a butthole human being seems so like obvious. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I think I tweeted out earlier today, I didn't feel bad for anyone who gets swept up in this, because it's not like people didn't know that he was a butthole. Yeah.
Right.
Like, it was well advertised.
Wait, Vladimir's involved in what?
Oh,
what is he doing?
He did that?
That doesn't sound like the Putin I know.
Yeah, no. So I think that's the difficult, I think, thing that most people find in a lot of it. But also, like, and I know you don't fall into this category, but there's like a whole class of Chelsea fans who didn't get this choice. Like, they were born into this shit, and like
right. It's their club.
Yeah, and that's, you can't,
because it was their father's club and it was their grandfather's club.
Yeah,
and like
right.
It's not like this. I mean, to be fair, I did precede Roman Abramovich by about a year.
Yeah.
But I didn't even know that I preceded. I mean, I was fairly naive in my knowledge of just club picking.
Everything.
So I didn't even know. I didn't know if I was backing a winner or a loser at that moment.
Sure. I think like, too. Think how many people fell in love because of FIFA, and you're raising your hand for the people who never see what we see. But
are we not posting these?
We should. We really should start posting the video.
We probably should.
Got to start editing out the at some point. But I do think there's just like a whole class of people that it wasn't even in their lexicon. And I think we're crossing that same barrier with American sports right now too. Like, think how many American sports owners are getting found out to be scumbags, and they're facing that pressure now in a way they never used to be.
Sure.
So I think that's professional sports in a way that it's never been in the past, at least.
So Roman Abramovich had to make a statement. Well, he put out an initial statement. This was the weird part. So he puts out that statement. What was that? Saturday, Sunday, whenever. I guess it was Sunday, like right before the Carabao Cup final. Puts out a statement basically saying, like, I'm temporarily handing over stewardship of the club to the essentially the charitable arm of Chelsea Football Club. So it's the charity board that I think Petr Cech's on it, Emma Hayes. It's a lot of people involved with the club, people not like directly day-to-day involved with the club, but like
people who didn't sign up to run a soccer club.
Right. People that sign up for a charity that actually does a lot of good things. Like, it's a legit charity that does good, positive things within the community and within the sport.
Sure.
And then Roman was just like, hey, I'm handing over stewardship of the club to the charity, which, like, what that even means. I apparently they didn't even know.
Yeah.
Because they even asked for a meeting. Well, first of all, they asked for clarification from Roman of like, what? We're doing what now? And then they asked for a meeting with like apparently like the kind of the governing body that kind of like screens and legitimizes charities in England, because they were like, hey, can we do this? Like, we're trying to be a charity. Like, we want to keep the charity thing still happening. So we're going to meet to make sure this is all like above board.
Yeah. Could just, not that I'm trying to sympathize with them, because I'm really not, but could you imagine putting yourself in the shoes of not Vladimir Putin, but Roman Abramovich for like the past weekend, and what his life was probably like? And like, I'm not asking anyone to sympathize with it, but I'd love to like be a fly on the wall and watch that craziness, because he's probably just like, what can I liquidate, and then also hold that liquidated money outside of my Russian sphere, so that way that money doesn't get touched.
How do I launder money, but not in the way I've been laundering money? We need a new way
to launder all of my money. It needs to be fast.
Yeah, it needs to happen like by Monday.
Well, speaking of laundering money by Monday, we talked about how Roman gave it to the trust, and that probably
the trust were like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah,
what is this?"
They're like, "We can't, and you can't, and what?
And what does this even mean?"
And then a billionaire from Switzerland, who I've never heard of.
Right.
Shame on me, maybe. Was
know
like,
your billionaires.
He was like, I was offered Chelsea like this weekend, like just casually, like
a man offered me some Chelsea.
I was having, a schnitzel, as someone from Switzerland might. I don't know what people in Switzerland eat. And someone rang me up and was like, would you like to buy Chelsea? And he was like, I wasn't aware that Chelsea was on the marketplace. And he inferred that it was trying to be moved quickly. And Roman has come out and said, well, no, like, I'm trying to go through due process.
Right. So Roman puts out a statement today going like, hey, I wanted to dispel the rumor by saying that it's 100% true. I'm selling the but it was an interesting statement. So he says he is selling the club.
It was so interesting.
He is saying he wants to go about it the normal way. He also threw out that he wants to find an owner that's, obviously that's going to like see the best interest for the club.
Sure.
Then he also pointed out he's not going to recall his loans, which was obviously rumored, because had he done that, that could have saddled the club for the next decade. I mean, it's like building another stadium. We talk about the clubs that build stadiums, and then they got this debt that's just kind of hanging over them for years that they're trying to pay off. This was like almost $2 billion in loans that Roman gave to the club throughout the ownership, where he was basically just like, here's money to go get, to go make this stuff happen.
I tweeted about this, but I feel like there's so much to read into someone being willing to write off $2 billion in debts.
Well, not only just for writing off $2 billion in that debt, he then proceeded to say that any net proceeds from the sale will go to a foundation he's going to set up that will be they'll be used for the purpose of helping Ukraine, basically, or the people of Ukraine and the efforts there. So it was just, okay, wow. But like, what? What's this? It's all like, okay, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean?
Man.
You are setting up your own foundation, and then that money is gonna I want to not be cynical here. I want to see the best out of this, but the reason we're at this moment to begin with is because of shadiness and of being associated with the wrong things. And it's hard for me to, as much as I want to. And listen, like, you rewind the clock to summer of 2020, Roman Abramovich was actually being praised heavily in the UK press for taking the hotel there on the grounds of the stadium and allowing NHS workers to use it free of charge for several months, and helping pay for meals for all of the people at the hospital for several months. And so there's those things where you're like, okay, that's a good person thing. Like that's a noble thing. That's something that shows humanity. But it's like, yeah, but like there's still all of like, there's still the everything else about you, bud.
It never felt like, well, what is he? What's he really getting at with it? You know what I mean? Like,
sure, but I mean, again, that is the cynical view, but that also might be the correct view. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it feels cynical to say it, but also cynical to not question it at the same time.
Right.
And I'd love to be like, look at Roman, like just being so forthcoming and doing the right thing. And I look, I think it'd be stupid to think after a decade that he's like not have some emotional investment in some of this stuff, right? Like,
sure.
I think it's natural. He probably takes some pride in turning Chelsea into the power they are now. Like
right.
Rich
I think
stuff.
there is no question that he genuinely loves the club. And I think to that standpoint still wants the best outcome for the club.
Sure.
At least feels that responsibility, given, not wanting his own just misgivings be the end of the club.
Yeah,
I mean, we were talking, Thursday and Friday, there were reports about like the UK government essentially seizing the club.
Yeah. I don't think it's unrealistic that was going to happen.
Right.
There's been talk of he had a fire sale of his actual physical properties within the country, as well. So, I mean, it's stupid to not classify all of this as self-preservation, right? It's
sure. Well, it is definitely that. But is it also? I don't know. I mean, he's a complicated figure, to say the least. A guy that has done good, a guy who has been a pretty good. I mean, an owner from a club ownership standpoint, an owner that any other club wish they had.
Yeah,
an owner that would just all of a sudden just take just piles of money and just throw it at the club and say, "Go get who you need."
Yeah.
How many fan bases wishes their owner was going to do that? So there's that stuff, but then there's also just how, you dive into the history of just how he kind of rose to where he rose in business and in politics. And that is all just 1,000,000,000% tied to Putin and his regime.
Well, and I think too, and it's easy for me as an outsider, as someone who's not been a direct beneficiary of this style of ownership so far, to say some of this, but I frankly, before there was PSG, Chelsea, before there was Manchester City, Chelsea changed the game as far as money went. And it's naive to say that, because Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich and Juventus and Milan and Manchester United had all done similar things in the past too, right? Like it's all upstagings, but
right.
Oh man, I think back to the year that Chelsea signed both Shevchenko and Ballack in the same year for 30 million pounds. For 30 million pounds, such an almost a nominal fee now, like for a player, and how dichotomy changing that was in world football. Like people are like 30 million pounds for not one player but two. And
but did they change the paradigm or the whatever, or did they just speed us up to the inevitable point? Right?
It's definitely
like if they didn't do that within a couple years, there would have been someone else doing that, right?
Totally. But you also can't dismiss, Roman's hand in making that type of possibility and acceleration happen too. So you're not wrong. But
wonder what Shevchenko feels about this now.
Ooh.
What are his opinions on Roman Abramovich?
Oh man,
the man that made him quite wealthy.
He did.
Yeah, I believe he was quoted today saying something to back that like football is meaningless now. Like this is all I care about.
Shevchenko being the Ukrainian guy he needs to be at the moment.
Yep.
Would have known. It is tough. I'm not, what do you feel? What do you feel like is the future of Chelsea Football Club right now? And it's so like Monday morning quarterbacking from right here and trying to predict the future. 5 years.
It's hard to predict because you don't. I mean, kind of like you were saying earlier about like the guy's name, that the Swiss guy. Like, yeah, I don't know. I can't just rattle off a bunch of billionaires' names. It's like I don't know what money and what groups are out there that might come in. The only ones we legitimately know about is the Swiss guy and his consortium that involves, I think, one of the owners of like the Dodgers and some other people. It's mainly American investors. That sounds like an ownership group that's going to look to be see Chelsea more as a piece of business than a club where success is the goal, on-field success. And we've seen that with Manchester United and the Glazers and how they've treated the club. Yeah. And while they've spent a lot at times, they also make a lot of moves that's about profit. Ed Woodward's existence at the club is about profit and making it at high levels at the sometimes detriment of actual winning football. So you worry about that. You worry about if it's an owner that is going to, just not even just like run it like a business, but just not want to keep the same standard from a success standpoint and see it, and in 10 years, Chelsea is on par with, Everton and West Ham. Or I don't know, Conor McGregor wants to buy it. That'll be interesting. Not sure he's good for it financially, but whatever.
Brings Luis Suarez back in.
Oh yeah.
Terry.
I mean, can you just see him owning a club? He'll be in the owner's box, and like the other owner, someone else from the other club will be in the next box over, and he'll be like jumping the thing trying to fight somebody.
Yeah. I'm actually for this.
I mean, as someone who loves chaos, and although it will mean bad things ultimately for the club I love, gosh, that would be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it certainly would be.
So yeah, what the next decade looks like for Chelsea is going to be, I don't know. I have no idea. But the era is over.
I hate for UC to come, have to actually face coming back down to earth to normal club reality.
Sure. I'm fine with it.
Having a passive billionaire, like Spurs have. People are always like, oh, Chelsea, wow, those naughty guys with their rich owner. And I love particularly when it's my fellow Spurs supporters who are doing that. I'm like, you do know that Spurs have a billionaire owner, right? Like are you aware of that? He just doesn't like to show his face. That's the difference.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this week hearing Manchester City fans try to make comments. I'm like, you guys, the only reason you're not in the same boat is because your filthy owners haven't threatened nuclear war.
They're too smart. They know better than to do that.
They know not to say that word.
Yeah.
Don't say
nothing about nuclear. No, nothing. None of them down here. That's not what we're doing. The the Premier League happened this weekend.
Allegedly.
FA Cup.
We are
too.
still in that crazy period where it's like, especially this week, like there was matches on. I'm like, I don't even know what competition this is.
Oh man,
is this Premier League? Is this FA Cup? What am I watching?
There were Premier League matches during European normally match days.
Weird.
The FA Cup was happening on like a Friday and a Monday. Yeah. It's too much.
How'd Spurs do?
Good in the league this week.
Oh, okay. That wasn't actually my question. Listen, hey, we needed
on to the next side. We can just no. Okay, no.
We barely got past Luton Town today, so I don't have a ton of room to talk, but we did survive.
Spurs fell to Middlesbrough. That's good.
Can we talk about the fact that Chris Wilder is now the Middlesbrough manager, and he has completely changed his whole aesthetic? Like he wears like this like nice like long pea coat and like a dress shirt he was wearing on the touchline. I'm like, this was like, just dude that like lived in a tracksuit forever. Like, what is this?
It has to be a girl. A girl did this.
He's got a little
or a special someone.
Someone that's like, hey, you need to look a little nicer out there.
And he agreed.
Much like peacoat.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he looked like super chic. He really more or less looked like he, was managing like a parish somewhere. But yeah, hey, good on Middlesbrough. The goal scorer looked to be about 14 years old.
Yeah, may as well have been. It's classic, Spurs getting scored up by someone who doesn't even know what they're doing yet.
Mentioned it. There was the Carabao Coffee Cup final. Liverpool versus Chelsea. Amazing 0-0 match.
It really was. I know you guys came out on the short end of the stick.
We sure did.
What an epic match that was, to be fair.
It was really good. Now, looking back as the team that lost, that a lot of that really good moments is like, ooh, if we only would have actually scored that goal, or if Lukaku's arm wouldn't have been deemed as offside.
Don't get that one. Still don't get it.
And you know what? I'm gonna say it. I was gonna say something earlier. I am completely fine with the way we lost.
Good for you.
We live by the sword and die by the sword with this whole Kepa thing. We've done it several times. It's worked every other time. This is the one time it didn't work. It spectacularly didn't work. He saved 0 shots and then kicked one to the moon when it was his turn.
It hasn't come down yet.
And then got 2 past him against Luton Town today. So it's been a heck of a week for that guy.
Oh, they threw him back in?
Yeah. Which I thought like, oh, that good move by Tuchel. Like he's gonna get Kepa's confidence back. He's gonna go put him out against Luton Town. Will be fine. Gave up a goal in 2 minutes.
I'm certain. I knew he was broken the minute that first penalty went in.
Oh yeah. He just didn't have it. He just didn't have it. Sucks. Chelsea are on the skid. I think they've lost 4 straight domestic cup finals.
Now, not a good look, but also you're in a bunch of cup finals, so
yeah. I mean, I guess we're one of the European ones where we got a pretty good streak going there. That's good, I guess. We'll take that.
Sure. Good.
Take that and roll with it.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mentioned it, Newcastle up to 14th. Like they're surviving well. Everton, on the other hand, I think they're one point off the drop at the moment.
Like a stone in water at the moment. They're just sinking quickly. And Frank Lampard seems to be saying and doing all the right things, but I don't know that saying and doing all the right things is enough right now. Like there needs to be more, and namely like just belief and getting out of there. Like they got to do something.
Yeah, I think listen, that was part of the problem he had at Chelsea is he was sometimes a bit stubborn on just he was saying the right things. He was geeing up the guys. You could definitely tell he's a manager that players could buy in too pretty quickly, especially younger players.
Yeah.
That probably grew up watching them. But when it comes to, hey, plan A is not working, let's move to a plan B, or let's figure out a different situation. I don't know if he's just still young enough, and his manager, he just doesn't seem to have a plan B. So it's just, we're going to do this, and it's going to either work or we're done.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it'd be silly to expect him to be someone like Sir Alex or Rafa Benitez in his pomp, or Mourinho at the same time. Whatever the case might be, it's tough to expect a guy to live up to those standards right out of the gate.
He did play for two of the managers you just mentioned. You would hope he gleaned a few things from them.
So far, it appears he did not.
No. Let's go stateside.
Okay.
Let's go stateside. MLS opening week. And boy, oh boy, was that a week of some blowouts. There was some blowouts. There was some interesting results. There was a lot of goals that just weren't scored in matches.
Yeah.
Couple 0-0s out there. So I want to do, I got a handful I want to throw out at you. Well, really, it's kind of the result affecting both sides. So we can hit it from the home and away side here, the winner and the loser side here.
I'm excited about
this. Should people overreact? Are people going to overreact? Or is it going to be or should we underreact?
All right.
Is it not a big deal? Or is it like...
My favorite part about this is we're going into this blind, in that you proposed this as we were talking ahead of time, and I'm like, I love this idea, and I also didn't fully prepare for this idea. So I'm like,
I think it'll be good. It'll be fresh.
I will be fresh. It'll
fresh takes.
It'll be off the take press.
So let's start with the fact that Nashville SC, a team you predicted to have a real good season. I predicted a team that will ultimately be undone by their travel schedule.
Yes.
Goes to Seattle and gets a W against, obviously, kind of one of the classes of, one of the class teams of the league. Is it from a Nashville standpoint to go and get this first big win of the season against Seattle on the road? Probably one of the farthest, flights they have to take. Should we underreact or overreact?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, you and I both ranked Seattle as one of the top teams in the league.
Yeah.
Going into the season, I was even, I think, putting them in the rare category as one of the best potential MLS sides ever. I think this is a huge result for them. And listen, Seattle are versed in Major League Soccer play. They have never missed the playoffs. They have a formula that gets them where they need to go. But I think Nashville came in and were like, we have to set the tone early. Come into their house, get a result, and let them know, like, hey, we're a big deal
here
in this conference too.
From a Seattle side, dropping a match at home to start the season, not getting on the score sheet to start the season. Should there be some worry? Should we be overreacting about maybe we've put them up a little too high on the pedestal? Maybe this team is going to have a little bit more of a tougher time. I mean, I think both of us had them winning the West. I think most pundits said like they were going to walk away with the West.
Right.
First game in, not so great. Overreact or underreact?
Underreact, I think, is the better way of looking at it. I think this is a club that knows how to get to where they have to be. Like they are always in the playoffs. And the MLS season really doesn't matter for the most part until about halfway through. And if you can stay roughly in the neighborhood of the playoff hunt at the point of the halfway season, if you just mop things up at the end of the season, you're in the playoffs. And then when you're in the playoffs, as long as you're hitting the ground running, you have a shot at lifting some silverware. So I think Seattle know exactly what they're up to.
MLS 2020 champions Columbus Crew missed the playoffs last year. Had like a rocky home record as well in their new lower.com stadium.
Sure.
Host Vancouver to start the season, get a emphatic 4-0 victory. I think 4 different goal scorers. I mean, they were living it up.
They ran riot in that match.
Let's start with Vancouver. Should Vancouver fans be like hitting like I don't know what their expectations were, but should they be like freaking out like, oh wow, we are not good?
My natural reaction is I think they would be freaking out and they would be going real problematic. But I think they knew this was coming. I think they all knew this was going to be a bad year. Last year wasn't good. This year was destined to get a little bit worse, and I think they're trying to build towards something it's maybe a season or 2 off. But they're definitely not there yet.
On the Columbus side of things, obviously the day couldn't really have gone any better. Is this should fans overreact and say we're going to win the East over here? Like we're looking great, or should they underreact and say, hey, good first win against a really crap team that had to fly a good bit to get here?
Oh, may as well overreact to it.
I mean,
it's early.
When in doubt, overreact, right?
Yeah, right. Have fun. Have fun with it.
Okay. Austin FC do have their sights on the playoffs for this season.
Yes.
They think they got a team that can get themselves into the playoffs in year 2. FC Cincinnati comes into the season saying, we are making the progressive switch over to not being a complete garbage fire. We're going to be competent. We're going to have good culture. We're going to start bringing in the right players.
Right.
Win on the field on Saturday was a 5-0 drubbing by Austin. Let's start with Austin. Should they be walking away from this victory going, yep, playoffs, go ahead and book it?
No. I think that would be a complete overreaction to the situation they find themselves in. It was a fantastic performance from their angle, right? Like, full credit to Josh Wolf. That's easily the best managerial showing he's had thus far in his young Major League Soccer career. But man, it's FCC. A week before the season, the club's new general manager came out and went, hey, everyone, just giving you a heads up. This isn't the final product.
This is an unfinished product here. We are not going to be rolling out week 1 the product we want.
We're going to still be crap. Like, that's, to me, I immediately went, they don't want people to freak out over what's going to happen in the beginning part of the season, because they're not achieving or have not yet achieved what they want to do with this team.
So from a Cincinnati standpoint, should we heed the warning of Chris Albright and go, hey, guys, we're going to suck. Prepare to suck? Or should we look at what Chris Albright said and say, hey, it's just one result. It's just one really bad result. The season's not completely over yet.
You would hope that's the angle they're pushing.
I mean, what was the angle you were feeling though? Watching that match, was it as big of a yikes to you as it was to me? I saw a lot of things in that match that was like, I knew we weren't going to be at that level yet, but I thought we were past doing these things.
I certainly thought we should have been past seeing that type of performance. Like, you would hope there'd be some more spine in game 1, like in that type of scenario.
Sure.
I do think there's some knowledge within the team that no one's spot is safe still. Anyone could be traded or moved or positioned in a way to make sure that a better team can come in and Be more effective, right? People don't want to get themselves out of the situations they're in.
Of the, of the different facets of the game, what from that performance alarms you the most? So I can tell you, for me, it was probably
is the defense. It really
was.
I
mean, the defense is up there for me. I'm going to actually go slightly different. I'm going to say I expected a little bit more of a competent keeper performance. There were moments there where I just was like, I don't know if he knows what he's doing right now. Like, just the way he moved at some balls.
Here's the. I'm not a goalkeeper, right? Have always played very close to keepers and have a few friends who are elite level keepers, and have spent a bit of time talking to them about some of this type of stuff. I think what happened in that game was like the wheels fell off and everyone's confidence was shot and it really fell through the floor. I can expect a first-time goalkeeper with the club who's been given the number 1 shirt being like, oh, man, like everything's caving in on me. The sand, I can't do anything about it. The thing that really concerned me about that performance were the players sitting in front of him. Jeff Cameron, I felt like he was, a veteran MLS center back that was earning a league minimum and just there to collect his check.
He looked like a bit of a bystander to just the whole proceedings.
It felt very much like a team that was still in preseason mindset, and I really would have expected more out of a back line that has as much veteran leadership as it does to have folded the way that it did. Like, to me, that seeps of the culture has not yet changed within the squad. And the defense is usually a good sign as to where that's coming from. They produced some good chances. They definitely did. But it wasn't enough to, in my opinion, even if they converted most of them.
Right. And I mean, they started the match with 2 players that up top that were obviously not their, I'm guessing not their first 2 choices.
No, probably not.
I mean, you think that obviously Brenner is going to be up there. You pay that kind of money. You have to just pencil him in because you spent a lot of money on him. I would think maybe it's going to be like probably him and Bocce up there. Is that like the A pairing? Is that the first line?
I'll be honest. I haven't been able to fully envision the new vision for the team yet. And maybe that's, from lack of exposure, but we'll have to see.
One last one for you. One last overreact, underreact. Atlanta United getting a relatively comfortable 3-1 win over Sporting Kansas City. Let's start with Sporting Kansas City. Obviously, we talked about it last week. They go into the season with their star DP striker already out for the season. Already not playing. You just got to move on. Polito's not going to be there. Is this an alarming moment for them? We're talking about a fan base that obviously has a higher standard for what they're looking for from the team.
Right.
Is this a yikes moment for the fan base to go, this season we might actually really not be that good this season?
I think that's an overreaction right now. Right? Like, to me, MLS, again, the good teams, the people who know how to navigate, the early portions of the season, it's just like a get by. Get yourself to the All-Star break where you're not out of the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can refocus yourself after that point, or at least start gearing yourself up to a focus point at that point in the season and put together enough of a run to not only get yourself in the playoffs, but even build towards a championship run that might follow as well. So,
Atlanta United, do they watch that performance and go, "We are back"?
Admittedly, I only watched the extended highlights on this one, but they certainly had a schnazziness to them.
There's a swagger. There was a swagger they used to have.
here comes Atlanta again. Like, here we are. It did feel a little bit that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, that was all I have for that. I don't know if there was any other games you wanted to make mention of.
Yeah, I watched a lot of MLS. It was fun getting to our inaugural watch soccer all day point in the year again.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
Winners and wankers?
Yeah. Why don't you give me your wanker?
My wanker. It was announced today. U.S. men's national team and U.S. women's national team television rights starting in 2023 have been acquired by the Turner network. And it was weird. The graphic that they showed included all of like the Turner properties, as if you leaving
Cartoon Network was on there.
Yes, I was like, wait, are they going to put a game on Cartoon? Are they going to put a game on Cartoon Network?
Or
are they original content?
Cartoon Network original content based around the national teams.
Now that I would be for. It did mention though in the press release that the main hubs for matches will be TNT and TBS, which makes sense. However, there will be matches that will only stream exclusively on, and get ready to spend some more money, folks, add another streaming platform to your budget, HBO Max.
I hate this so much.
You were just commenting about that this week, about like how many things do I need, like how many platforms do I need?
To be fair, that's what it's inspired, that tweet. It really I'm I hate decentralized television. The internet felt like such freedom for a little while, and it's just all brought us back to the same place. We're just putting it all in different pockets directly now, and everyone's taking bigger and bigger cuts, and it's getting to be dumb. I'm not a fan.
So if you are a soccer fan in the U.S. now, you need to have for FA Cup, European leagues, and MLS out of market games, you need ESPN Plus.
Yes.
If you like the Premier League, you're going to need Peacock, whatever, like, I don't know if it's Peacock TV, Peacock Plus, whatever it is, the actual like paid version of it.
Yep.
If you want to watch Champions League, you need Paramount Plus. And now, if you want to watch the U.S. men's national team, you have to get HBO Max. Which a lot of those I just mentioned are like $5 a piece. HBO Max, not as much.
No, it's definitely going to be one. I'm going to wait.
A seasonal purchase.
Yeah, or I'm going to have to find someone who has the service already and be like, "Yo, you should host a national team party."
I can arrange that for you here.
All right, we can do that.
I have HBO Max.
Well.
Or shall I say, I have access to HBO Max.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. That's a great wanker for this week for sure.
Your wanker.
I took the easy one here. I went with Vladimir Putin.
Really?
Yeah. Just
what has he done?
And just messing everything up for everyone.
My winner.
Your winner.
Is the Premier League. Obviously, there's a lot going on within the league, within players, and obviously within club ownership at this point, involving the whole invasion of Ukraine. Premier League is announced today that the captains this weekend will wear Ukrainian armbands in all Premier League matches, which I thought was a cool little touch, especially for like a big league that obviously has a lot of different players involved. That it can be a little murky sometimes, but it's cool that the Premier League itself are unifying with that one.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool seeing the world come together like this and these type of circumstances and uniting over these types of situations. And I went with a really kind of similar sentiment. We saw this in a lot of different places, but the one that really struck me and is probably the most widespread of them so far was all these outpourings of support from the supporters for the Ukrainian players that play for their sides.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that really did the rounds was when Benfica's Ukrainian forward Roman Abramovich came on, and not only was he substituted on and given like this resounding ovation, but he was given the armband by one of my longtime favorites, Jan Vertonghen, who's been at Benfica since he left Spurs. And he came on and was like visibly moved to tears from the support he was being shown. And man, this sport has so many vehicles for its humanity, and it always seems to be with those moments where like the players get to feel what the fans are giving them that like hit the hardest. And there aren't many times where I'm like super, super proud of the sport and like you get kind of caught up in the wave of it. But it was hard not to be like, oh God, I'm wiping away tears too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Who I don't care about at all, like from a playing perspective, was just being shown like emotional human support by thousands of people. It was just a beautiful moment.
All right.
Feels the right spot to sign off.
Yeah.
On.
Hopefully, more positive things to talk about next week. But we'll see.
No more war, if we can help it, right?
That'd be nice.
Can't promise. Sorry.
Just keep turning the screws on these oligarchs, I guess, right?
Yeah. Take that, Roman. Sorry.
Roman's going to overthrow. What if he overthrows the government? Then who's going to be the bad guy? You, for being rude to him.
Yeah.
Told you shouldn't have.
That's why you didn't cross him this whole episode. I get it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Hedging my bets over here.
We'll talk to you soon, folks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.